we could have advanced the story, but now we're arguing about whether every response to what Donald Trump says, whether he has reversed himself or not, is it, well, I won. That seems to be what you're saying. Well, he won, so he can say whatever he wants to. That is not a valid argument, actually, Michael.
Well, it is partly a valid argument. Of course it is.
Yeah.
He won.
Okay, I'm going to punch Michael in the face, but it doesn't matter because I won. That's what you're saying.
It's a worship of power, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, it's a worship of democracy. This is why I don't.
And part of a democracy is for the press to be able to ask questions regardless of what you think of them or not.
Into a punch in the nose.
No, but that's what you. That's what you're saying. You're saying it does not matter. What everyone here is. President-elect Donald Trump has been avoiding the news media, and I want to talk about this with Michael Wolff, a columnist for The Hollywood Reporter, senior political commentators Peter Beinart and Kayleigh McEnany, and Philip Bump, political reporter for The Washington Post. Hello, and we're all here together. Here we are all together. Peter, you first. It's been 147 days since the president-elect held a press conference, but he did answer some brief questions twice today. Listen to this.
Your comments about the truck attack in Berlin being against Christians, do you think that this might...
Say it again, what?
The attack in Berlin being an attack against Christians?
Well, who said that? When was that said?
I believe you said it in a press release.
Yeah.
So wondering how this might affect relations with
That's
Muslims?
an attack on humanity. That's what it is. It's an attack on humanity. And it's got to be stopped.
Did it seem awkward? Because he did say it in his statement.
Right. I actually think what he said there was much better, but it's kind of remarkable to have somebody who is a president-elect who doesn't know what was put out under his name. And what was put under his name was strikingly different than the White House statement because it never mentioned the people killed as Germans. It specifically referred to them as Christians, people celebrating Christmas, and linked them to other Christians killed around the world. It was a very clash of civilizations statement. I thought Trump's statement here was much better, but really striking that he wasn't even aware of what was put out under his name, evidently.
Well, here's what he said, just so that we're clear about what he actually said. He said innocent civilians were murdered in the streets as they prepare to celebrate the Christmas holiday. ISIS and other Islamist terrorists continually slaughter Christians in their communities and places of worship as part of their global jihad. These terrorists and their regional and worldwide networks must be eradicated from the face of the earth, a mission we will carry out with all freedom-loving partners. Does it seem, Kayleigh, that he's backing away from his original statement?
No, I don't think so. I think he was making clear that ISIS attacks more than just Christians. They attack moderate Muslims, for instance. But this attack, and I think that statement that the administration put out is entirely accurate. This was an attack on people at a Christmas festival. There is a genocide against Christians specifically happening in Syria, which has been ignored, entirely ignored. I think it will be a story much reported on a decade from now, and it's been ignored. There is a genocide of Christians. That statement's accurate. Also, what President Trump said was accurate, President-elect Trump. I think it's important to acknowledge, though, that others are attacked as well, moderate Muslims namely, and I think he acknowledged that.
Do you think he's backing away?
Well, it seems pretty clear that he wasn't exactly sure, as Peter said, what had been said in this statement. And I mean, he himself seemed to say, yes, well, this is actually all about humanity. I mean, I think the important issue here is the words that are being used. These are the words that are coming out from the president-elect of the United States. We've already seen how things that he has tweeted, for example, have moved the stock markets. These are it's important. It's important to get this right and to say what you mean. The suggestion here, based on his response to that shouted out question, is that he wasn't exactly having ownership over the words that were being put out in that press release.
Michael?
I'm kind of missing the whole point here. I mean, this is pretty much what Donald Trump has been saying for the entirety of his campaign. There is nothing new here. I hope you're not running a breaking news chyron on this. This is not new. This is what he says. This is his position. This is the position that, in part, got him elected.
You don't see a difference in what he said in that on-camera interview and the statement?
I do not.
Okay.
Do you?
Right. I mean, no, you're right. It's not a big difference in what he's been saying in the campaign, but what he's been saying during the campaign has been consistently, from my point of view, horrifying. It's been a consistent attack on Muslims, their rights, their dignity, and so when he continues to do that, we should talk about it.
We know that's what Democrats feel, and
not only Democrats, actually, a lot of other people feel it as well.
Well, not enough not to deprived him of election.
Sure.
So the American people feel, most of the American people feel, or at least vis-a-vis the Electoral College, most feel that this is a legitimate way of looking at
Yeah,
these
but Michael,
issues.
we're allowed
It's
to
such a
talk
weird
about
argument.
we're allowed to talk about what's right and wrong,
I
not
mean,
just what a majority of people feel, right?
Right.
Yeah, hang on. He did say who said that as if he didn't know who said it. Now, maybe his messaging has been similar all along when he said who said that.
Well, he's also done
And
that throughout the campaign.
And the reporter
too.
said,
The
reporter said, "You said it."
Anything he does from
there's
here on out is
nothing-
okay because he got elected. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, no, but it does make a great deal of difference that he was elected and that this is the position that he ran on.
But the question
and he's
isn't the
not,
position, the
and he's
question
not,
is the
he's no, and he's not deviating from that position. So we are not advancing the argument here. What is the argument? That he's wrong? Yeah.
Wait a second, Michael, what you're saying makes
straw
no
man.
sense. He said again that he supports, that he didn't walk back the Muslim ban, which is still on his website. Right. That was horrifying before, it's horrifying now. The fact that he still holds the same position doesn't make it less important.
It's just that you've been saying this through the whole campaign.
And I'll keep saying it.
And you turn out to have been on a side that lost. And I'm
proud to be on the side that lost. It's a question of right and wrong.
Nevertheless, at some point, because this is a democracy, we have to say, okay, what's the issue here? I mean,
Okay,
how
I
does
can answer that.
how does this change what has been argued in the campaign? How does this reflect what the American people want it to reflect? Where do we go from here?
We're going to move on and talk about that. But in this one question where he was asked by a reporter and he seemed not to know what the initial response was, that was the crux of the question. Did he seem to know? And you moved on and pivoted and said,
once again,
well, what
that
does it
response,
matter
the response that was put out by the campaign has been very similar to what he has been saying throughout by the campaign. I'm still calling it the campaign.
Right. Well, I did that last time. I'm doing the same.
By the, I guess, the transition team.
Or it's an actual administration now. You can say that, right?
Is very close to what he has been saying for a very long time now.
Yeah.
So no issue there. Then he said something, called out in the crowd, hey, 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 and he said something else. And now we're debating whether he's reversing himself on that?
No.
He broadened his message by saying humanity. And look, there was a slight miscommunication there with the reporter. It might have been he has a dozen meetings a day and he was trying to get clarity on what exactly was said. Hopefully it's not the fact that, he wasn't aware of the press release that went out, but there was a slight miscommunication.
Which was the
there.
point of asking this question.
That's
what I
exactly-
asked you.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
that's
right.
why I asked
The
you.
reporter asked the question because she's like, this is an interesting thing for the president-elect to say, to single out the fact that these are Christians being attacked. As Kaylee points out, it's primarily Muslims who are being targeted by the Islamic State and by these radical terrorists because this is where they live. But this is why the question was being asked, because this is an unusual thing for the president-elect to say. Yes, he won the election. That doesn't mean, he can say whatever the heck he wants for the next 4 years. It just doesn't
But there was
pointing out
accuracy in
that
his
he has said
statement
this.
that Christians are-
He has said this continuously, and you seem shocked.
Which is
shocked.
why we
No,
should
I'm
not.
shocked by
Which is,
your response. No, I'm not shocked by what he did at all.
Which is the media position.
Sorry.
Nevertheless, shocked.
No,
like
it's
you.
because we
Shocked.
shouldn't. No, it's because we shouldn't normalize.
Michael, you shouldn't say-
It's
you
because
shouldn't
we
say-
shouldn't normalize things which are horrible, no matter how many times they are said.
It's the media position. It's the media's job to ask questions, man. If you think they're silly, if you think
And not
they're
to
wrong,
wave him
that's
away
our
by
job
saying he
is
won
to
an
ask a
election.
question.
It's astonishing.
Especially
That's the
if
kind of
it
worship of
seems that
power,
there's
right?
no consistency.
I'd argue
I got to
that
take a
the
break. I'll give you the
media
first.
job
I
is
will.
to
I'll
advance
give
the
you.
story,
Well,
but-
well, you didn't give us a chance because you said, well, the question. Why are you asking that question? And I hope you're not putting this up. We could have advanced the story, but now we're arguing about whether every response to what Donald Trump says, whether he has reversed himself or not, is it, well, I won. That seems to be what you're saying. Well, he won, so he can say whatever he wants to. That is not a valid argument, actually, Michael.
Well, it is partly a valid argument. Of course it is.
Yeah.
He won.
Okay, I'm going to punch Michael in the face, but it doesn't matter because I won. That's what you're saying.
It's a worship
but
of
this
power,
is not-
basically, is what you're
no,
saying.
Yeah.
No, it's a worship of democracy. This is why I don't.
And part of a democracy is for the press to be able to ask questions regardless of what you think of them or not.
Into a punch in the nose.
No, but that's what you. That's what you're saying. You're saying it does not matter. What everyone here what everyone here hears from you, and I think many people at home. Yes, you're right. It's part of the media's job to move the conversation forward. But what you're saying is, if you ask a question, if the president-elect or the president says something that you don't deem, or he thinks that you're ganging up on him, that it's just that he can say it because he won.
No, that is not what I'm saying. I am saying
He's never
that
wrong
this
because
has
he won.
No, but he has said this throughout the campaign. We know that is his position.
That wasn't a
Even
question.
the question. That's not.
I
a
got to
question.
take a break.
Tell me what you think the question
I did
is.
5
We
minutes ago.
will
and you
after
didn't
the
listen.
break. We'll be right back. And we're back now with a very dull discussion that we were having just before the break. But Michael, I promise to give you the first word out of the break. You were making a point that what?
I'm just curious about the implications of this. This is now not an either-or situation. This is Trump's position, this is Hillary Clinton's position, and we're arguing about the two. This is now the position of the President of the United States and of this administration that he is now assembling. So what are the implications of that, I think, is the better question to ask than what I heard before, which is, did he say that? Could he have said that? Shock, shock.
Well, and more than just him saying it, I was just reading that Secretary Kerry actually recognized the genocide against Christians. This is a real thing. You're absolutely correct to acknowledge it. There is a genocide against Christians, and what President-elect Trump did today was he brought in that to say this is an attack against humanity, recognizing the fact that people of other faiths are killed as well, but it doesn't delegitimize the point that there is a genocide against Christians being conducted
Should that
and
have
waged
been
by
said in
ISIS.
the original statement, and then there would be no need to have this conversation?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's the point that Michael was just making. Yeah, I mean, yes, obviously, there are all sorts of ways to approach an issue in which terrorists kill multiple people. It's a horrible tragedy. It's a tragedy to humanity, regardless of who those people are, regardless of the faith that they participate in. The fact that he is the president-elect of the United States is what makes this a more important topic to tackle. What his stance is in terms of how he responds to terror attacks. That is an important issue, particularly because it's no longer an either-or, because he is the president-elect of the United States. I think that's what we're getting at, and I think that's why it's a worthwhile discussion.
And the larger context here is that we have a president and a lot of his advisors, people like Steve Bannon, Michael Flynn, others in the administration, who in a really significant divergence from both the Obama and the Bush administrations, depict the war on terror as a clash of civilizations. I mean, there's statement after statement after statement from these guys basically talking about this as a civilizational fight.
Well,
sometimes,
it is.
sometimes, actually,
the West
no,
being attacked.
So,
it is modern
actually,
modernity being attacked.
Well, it depends
is
what
certainly
you mean.
that.
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by the West, and I'm not surely entirely what you mean by modernity, right? Especially because more Muslims have been killed by ISIS than have people in the West, right? One could argue, as Bush did, that this is actually a struggle about freedom, right? To calling the West is got very particular racial and religious connotations to it, right? That's where the term West comes from, and people like Bannon and Flynn are not subtle about that, right? About talking about this as a war of Christendom, essentially, against Islam. So in that context, this statement is significant. This is a significant shift in the way we frame this struggle.
I don't think that's correct. Look, the West is being attacked, Christianity is being attacked, moderate Muslims are in fact being attacked, but there is a war on Western society. It started by a guy named Saeed Qutb, who came to the United States and was disgusted with modernity and what he saw on his college campus, and he wrote the seminal document that founded al-Qaeda that then transpired into ISIS. So it is a war against a civilization. Other people have been killed, certainly, and I recognize that, but to dismiss the fact that the West is being attacked is absurd.
There are deep problems with that construct. First of all, to suggest that this civilization, the West, is at war with Islam puts the Muslims in the West in the position of being essentially enemies within, right? You can talk about this as a construct of states versus a stateless actor or of principles, but when you talk about as a religious civilization against another one, you are causing, it seems,
we are not at war
a lot
with
of
Islam.
problems.
We are being attacked by radical Islamists.
Michael, get it. Go ahead.
Advance the discussion. What are the implications of this? What happens now? How does this become policy? What does this statement portend in terms of actions?
Well,
accuracy. When you have a president who calls terrorism workplace violence, isolated extremism, a lone gunman, he's used all of those three terms.
Accuracy.
Did you make that argument in the first segment?
Yes, I mean, I just want to isolate what Peter said at the beginning of this. I mean, obviously, this is a huge conversation about the extent to which the United States is fighting radical Islamic terrorists. But the point is that what he said in that statement is a break from past presidents. It is a break from what is happening with the Obama administration, and that is what made it stand out. And just to cycle all the way back to what we were talking about 10 minutes ago and yelling at each other, I think that's why this is. And to your point,
and what's the ramification?
Well, it doesn't matter because he won.
They're going to be. They're going to
No, but I mean, that's why we talked about it.
Touche.
They're going to be tons of. For one thing, I think one of the reasons that people like Michael Flynn are so much more pro-Russian is because they see Russia as a Western white Christian country in the struggle against Islam. That's a big ramification.
That's got to be the last word. Thank you. It's a very interesting conversation. I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you so much. Just ahead, President-elect Donald Trump facing a world in turmoil as he prepares to take office. Is he getting a sufficient number of intelligence briefings? We'll talk about that next.